My name is Ora Cogan, and this is The Hardest Part.
Hello, and welcome to The Hardest Part, the show that unravels the stories behind the most challenging songs ever written. I'm Kieron Banerji, and joining me in the studio on this episode is Ora Cogan. When I talked with Ora about her song Crickets, she described the complex and challenging journey of its creation. The song took a long time to come together, reflecting the unusual and difficult place she was in while writing it. She was deeply immersed in the natural world at the time, more so than in the human world, which influenced the song's themes and made the process pretty unique. She wrote Crickets across several different locations, including New Mexico, the Pacific Northwest, and Italy, with each landscape leaving its mark on the song. One of the biggest challenges was trying to articulate what she was absorbing from these natural environments, especially at a time when the world felt particularly turbulent with the rise of Trump and a general sense of political unrest. Ora was spiritually and creatively trying to channel some kind of response to the state of the world, almost like a form of witchcraft to counterbalance the negativity she was feeling. On a technical level, the song also presented difficulties. Its time signature and structure were more complex and intricate compared to some of her other work, which added another layer of challenge. The arrangement was far from conventional, requiring her to push beyond her usual methods. Despite the challenges, or perhaps because of them, Crickets stands out as a deeply personal and intricate piece that reflects both the natural world and the chaotic human landscape she was navigating at the time. Make sure to stay tuned to hear Crickets in full at the end of this episode, but before that, here's my chat with Ora.
Crickets was a song that took me a really long time. It was a really weird process and a weird place that I was in while I was writing. And I think the arrangement is interesting. There are a lot of reasons that I chose this one specifically as the hardest song that I've written.
And what are the different elements which made it so hard?
One was that I was at the time a little bit more interested and immersed in land and thinking about the land and the natural world more than the human world. I wrote the song in a few different locations. So I was in New Mexico, on the West Coast in Tiliquit territory in the Pacific Northwest, and in Italy. And it took several months. I forget exactly how long to write. So one of the things, one of the elements that makes this a challenging song is just that I was really immersed in these landscapes and trying to communicate and articulate what I was picking up from the natural world where I was. And the other was politically what was going on was Trump was on the rise for the first time. And the world felt like a fresh kind of fucked up in a lot of ways. And so I was kind of spiritually trying to do some kind of witchcraft to combat the state of the world, or to kind of build up some kind of supernatural force field or something.
It's funny.
And then there's the technical. Yeah, it didn't work very well, did it? No, but work in progress. And that technically, it's an interesting time signature and structure, and the elements of the arrangement are a little bit more complex and a little bit more interesting than some of the more normie songs that I wrote.
It's funny you say that, actually, because I was spending a little bit of time. I was actually in the Deep South, actually, with my good buddy Jack, and we were just spending a lot of time in the car driving around these very different landscapes than I'm used to, that I've grown up with. And when you kind of see what's going on in the world, and I assume we'll still be in the same state as we are now than when this comes out, but there's war and some very divisive politics, and I never felt like the natural world is more disconnected from the human world than it ever is right now. Because like it's sometimes easy to forget when you're lost in nature, but people have really fucked it up, haven't they? It's like they've really sort of like separated themselves from the natural world, and I feel like if more people had this more conscious connection to it, things would be a bit better.
Yes. And it's not people, it's specific people.
It's specific people, yeah.
You know, who have fucked things up. And it's also specific culture and systems that have fucked things up. And all of that fucked upness is fucking up people and human cultures too. And yes, it's absolutely, I think that relationship to the natural world that we are constantly in, whether we recognize it or not, you know, for people to like, you know, I love music. I also love learning about the natural world and learning about ecology. And, you know, I think if more people understood how trees work, how tree science works, what our relationship is with forests, specifically ancient forests, and all of the really old bioregions that have been stewarded by indigenous communities around the world for time immemorial. How those ecosystems work, how trees work, learn more about the ocean, learn more about our relationship, our intrinsic relationship with the natural world, we would definitely be better off. I think our political landscape would change, because frankly, even people I think that have really good intentions don't really understand a lot of that stuff. My friend Merlin Sheldrake wrote a beautiful book about mycology that's become really popular, and there's definitely a lot of really, really great literature out there right now that's really accessible, and a lot of really good work being done to communicate that. It's definitely a part of this music too, you know, so that at the time I was in my friend Simka's territory, in Tulukwit territory, and it's an incredibly beautiful, powerful place in the world with these forests that are like thousands and thousands of years old, and really kind of rough, intense seas. There are constant threats from really bad practices in industries trying to extract as much as possible constantly. It's like the continuation of colonialism. So it's a really intense part of the world to be in, where there's a very antagonistic relationship. Crickets on, click on my chest, shatter and scatter over the cracks in the dawn. I was drunk on Mars, swimming in the deep, in the glow.
So you mentioned that the song was part written in New Mexico, Italy, and the Pacific Northwest. Very different landscapes and very different sort of, you know, nature.
Yeah.
What was the different connection you had with these different places? How did it change and evolve the song?
Some of the percussion lines, I think they came from New Mexico, and crickets. It's kind of silly that it's called crickets, because I think what was really kind of penetrating my head were cicadas. Yeah. But there were rainbow grasshoppers there, and all sorts of really cool insects, and the percussion line, and a lot of the percussion lines on that album in particular have a kind of insect-like quality to them. Yeah. So like it's in 7/8. So it's 4 counts of 7 and 2 counts of 8. So you've got with the 8, it's da 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 da, and like that kind of those little percussion lines, I think they had to do with New Mexico. And then a lot of the big droney atmosphere had to do with Chilliwack territory, close to where I grew up, of these big winter storms. So I was trying to take time to play music. And if you're not super rich, that means trying to find a way to live without working all the time, or just trying to write songs after work. And in this case, me and my partner at the time was a painter, and he would need to spend a lot of time in front of a canvas, like slowly oil painting. And I really wanted to do a deep dive into songwriting. So we did trades with friends, or doing house sitting for friends. So we went to my friend Sally in New Mexico, who had to go take care of her mom in East Texas. So we took care of her place, and we stayed out there, and we were able to live really cheaply and just write, and didn't see a lot of humans for a long time. So we were out in the desert, and not a lot of human contact, but a lot of like insects and animals and big, vast sweeping hills with juniper trees and snakes and a lot of really rich kind of light pastel colors. And then the opposite being in Chilliwack territory, where it was like winter storms and dark and moody and gray and green those landscapes were really immersive and really easy to be kind of taken over by. And like one of the best compliments that I got about the music was from locals that were like, "This sounds like the land here."
Amazing. The perfect compliment. Yeah.
It's like, I'm melting into
I'm one with this now.
And then Italy was just weird. It was like this. It kind of felt like the Lord of the Flies, but with rich people. And it was kind of an isolated place in a really beautiful, majestic landscape too. And that kind of added to the song as well, of having this like kind of pressurized social dynamic in this really weird zone. With a bunch of pretty eccentric people. So that was it was a real privilege to get to go to that.
You there on the surface, go down into the deep. You there on the surface, go down into the deep. All the love in the world you can find it out there.
How did this process differ from your normal process? You said that, you sort of mix things up a little bit.
With this one, it was really easy. It was like a lot of hard, complicated stuff, but it was easy in the way that I felt very much like I was drawn or haunted or pulled into the directions that things were going into. It was hard in the way that I was kind of going crazy. And I don't know if it was really a methodical process where I could tell you, oh yes, I decided to do, to use this kind of songwriting method. I think I decided to let myself be pushed a little bit to a couple of different edges and, be to the point where I was really uncomfortable, and the kind of macrocosm of being in these small, really intense communities are isolated and not speaking to more than one or two humans for weeks at a time, or speaking to really weird humans and not having a lot of really stabilizing perspective or whatever, and just getting kind of more and more lost in the atmosphere of the music.
Did you have any collaborators on the record?
I did. I had some wonderful collaborators, and they really, and because I don't read music, a lot of the way that I would communicate ideas to them was through really flowery, descriptive, weird language. Or dancing.
Like the insects and the percussion, right?
So Tom Dice was the co-producer on this record. He played piano and bass and all sorts of, he played guitars. And then Danny Markham is a percussionist who was based in New York City, and she was working with Childish Gambino and all these crazy artists there. And I was really humbled that she came and did this session. She drove out and she brought this huge marching drum that belonged to her grandfather that had a real animal skin on it, and brought all this really cool percussive stuff and really got into it. And then Russell Crocher from the Chamber Orchestra of New York City, and he also does some experimental music, and he was a friend of Tom as well. So Tom basically called in these collaborators to come and work on the record in his basement. It was just like a DIY project. It's not like we had a big budget or anything like that. But we had, I had Tom, who is a brilliant musical mind, and he was a really supportive collaborator and really fun. The whole thing was really, really fun. And so we had Danny doing this kind of the like cricket-like percussive bits and the timpani sort of bells, and then Russell doing this sort of, what I was asking for was like I play fiddle too, but not not a comparison to him. And I was asking for something that was also insect-like, but also using reference to the Wicker Man and older English kind of folk. And I just wanted this sort of like monotonous, intense sort of fiddle lines. So that then there's that kind of like da 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 da, the like pulsing sort of soft Stravinsky like violin line, and then I wrote the song on a synthesizer, and it was arpeggiated. And Tom was the one that suggested to play the line by hand, so that complicated melody line for the 8 part. So the that was originally an art line that I wrote.
Amazing.
And then he played it all by hand. So now when we do it live, it's the bass player that does that.
One thing I always love talking to artists about their music with is that sometimes you think you know a song so well, right?
Yeah.
And then you speak to an artist that brings up these very specific elements to listen out for, and then when you re-listen to it, it changes the perception forever, changes the meaning of it, changes like every aspect of it. And like I can go from like feeling like I didn't love a song to loving a song, or to like
the opposite,
or the opposite, or like not being moved by a song and then being moved by a song, right?
Right.
Our audience is about to hear the beautiful session you just done for us. Is there anything you would like them to listen out for that is going to really impact the way they listen to it?
The biggest thing is that it came from a dream. So the lyrics are about, I had this crazy dream where I had a friend who was up on the surface of the ocean and I was down in the bottom, and I could see through the ocean, and I was looking up at him swimming on the surface of the water and trying to communicate with him, and I couldn't. And so I guess that image, and then the symbolism of that, and then what that became about when I was thinking about what was going on in the world, and just really, thinking about and grieving really for the land, considering everything that's been going on, and really like in a bit of despair, and just thinking about that, having that kind of that plea of like, you there on the surface, go down into the deep, like don't just swim up in the surface, like think about what's going on right now, be like in your body in this moment, in this traumatic, fucked up, horrifying moment, and let's do something, to in a real way to meet it. And I think that's so that's there. And then just I guess, honoring the natural world by like, picking up what I was connecting to it. So just like imagining in your mind, like the desert or the hills of Italy or the north kind of ocean, I guess, just meditating on that while you're listening.
Crickets on, click on my chest, shatter and scatter over the cracks in the dawn. I was drunk on the swimming in the deep, in the glow. You shook me out of my dream like a sinner. You shook me out of my dream like a sinner. You were born, living in two worlds, one on the sky, one here on earth. Someday come around through the light like glass, through the light like glass. You there on the surface, go down into the deep. You there on the surface, go down into the deep. All the love in the world you can't find it out there.
Thanks to Ora for coming on the show. Make sure to subscribe and follow The Hardest Part wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all other major platforms. This episode of The Hardest Part was recorded at the Thin White Duke Studios in London's Soho. It was recorded by Max Walker, and it's produced and mixed by myself. Photos from today's session are by Callum Baker, and additional videography is by Giovanni Alamonti. Thanks for tuning in.